All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about courage. But, not the superhero capes and tights kind of courage. We're digging into something deeper. That quiet strength it takes to just be in a world that often feels, pretty overwhelming and meaningless. And to do that, we're jumping into a classic, The Courage to Be by the philosopher Paul Tillich. And trust me, what he has to say is more relevant now than ever. So let's kick things off with this quote from Tillich himself. He said, "Today it has become almost a truism to call our time an age of anxiety." And get this, he wrote that back in 1952. Doesn't that just hit you? It feels like he could have tweeted it this morning. He saw his own time as this age of anxiety, and man, that resonates. His whole point is that you can't even start talking about courage unless you first understand the one thing that makes it so necessary, and that's anxiety. So that really is the central question, isn't it? What is the nature of courage in a world that feels so anxious? For Tillich, it's not about, some heroic grand gesture. It's way more fundamental. It's the strength to look at the world and say, I am, and to actually mean it, even when everything around you and maybe even everything inside you is screaming that you don't matter or that you might just disappear. Okay, so first things first, we have to look at the problem we're all up against. Tillich calls it the anxiety of non-being. Now, this word anxiety gets thrown around a lot, but Tillich is super specific here. He says anxiety is the state in which a being is aware of its possible non-being. So he draws this really important line between fear and anxiety. Fear, right? Fear has an object. You're afraid of a spider, or you're afraid of failing an exam. You can see it, you can name it. But anxiety? Anxiety's object is, it's nothingness. It's that vague, creepy feeling in the background, that dread of just not being. And you can't just punch nothing in the face, And he actually breaks this down into 3 different flavors of anxiety, each one attacking a different part of us. First up, you've got ontic anxiety. Fancy word, but it just means anxiety about our actual existence. This is the raw fear of fate and, the big one, death. Then there's spiritual anxiety. This is the fear that our life has no meaning. It's that hollow, empty feeling, the what's the point of it all question. And finally, there's moral anxiety. This one hits our self-worth. It's the crushing weight of guilt, that nagging voice that says you're not good enough, you're condemned. So if we're all getting hit by this triple threat of anxiety, what do? How do we possibly find the courage to face all that? Well, Tillich points out that throughout history, we've basically tried 2 major strategies. Let's dig into the first one. All right, here is the first attempt, what Tillich calls the courage to be apart. And honestly, this is probably the one most of us reach for first. And here they are, the 2 big paths, laid out side by side. On one hand, you have the courage to be a part of something, to find your strength by joining a group, a nation, a cause. And on the other hand, you have the complete opposite, the courage to be oneself, to be that lone wolf, that rugged individual. So the courage to be a part, as Tillich puts it, is the courage to affirm one's own being by participation. It's really important to see this isn't just about hiding in a crowd. No, it's a real play for courage. You're taking your own personal anxieties, your fear of death, your search for meaning, and you're handing them over to the group. And the group feels powerful, purposeful, maybe even eternal. And you see this everywhere, right? It's the fierce patriotism of a nation. It's the conformity you find in a corporate culture where everyone's rowing in the same direction. It's the powerful ideology of a political movement. You basically anchor your own fragile self to something that feels way bigger and stronger than you are. But not everyone's a joiner. In fact, some people have the exact opposite reaction. They run as far away from the group as they can. And that brings us to the second, equally flawed solution, the courage to be oneself. This is the path of the existentialist hero. Thinkers like Nietzsche really champion this. He says that your very self be in your action as the mother is in the child. Let that be your formula of virtue. The whole idea here is to find courage by totally rejecting the herd and forging your own values. Virtue isn't about following the rules, it's about making your own. It's you your unique self against the world.
Okay, but here's the brilliant part. Here's the twist. Tillich shows that both of these paths, if you follow them to their logical conclusion, are actually dead ends. Look at the risk for the courage to be apart. You end up with a total loss of self. The individual gets swallowed by the collective. You're just a cog in the machine. But then look at the other side, the courage to be oneself. The risk here is a loss of the world. You're an island, totally isolated, which leads to a different kind of emptiness. See? Each path ends up leading you right back to the non-being you were trying to run from in the first place.
So, this is the big dilemma. If trying to blend in is a trap, and trying to stand out is also a trap, then what's left? Is there another way? Is there some kind of courage that can bring these two opposites together?
And this is where we get to Tillich's profound ultimate solution. And it's not just one more strategy on the list, it's a totally different way of thinking about the entire problem. And it all boils down to this really beautiful, almost paradoxical phrase: the courage to accept acceptance. Just let that sink in for a second. The courage to accept acceptance. The highest form of courage isn't about fighting or proving something, it's about surrender. It's a courage to believe that you are accepted, just as you are. But what does that actually mean, to accept acceptance? It means you look at all of it, your guilt, your flaws, your doubts, everything that makes you feel unacceptable, and you accept that you're accepted despite all of it. It's the courage to accept forgiveness even when you feel you don't deserve it. This is what finally breaks the cycle. You don't have to earn your worth anymore, not by joining a group, and not by being a rugged individual. Okay, but the logical question is, accepted by what? Or by whom, right? If this acceptance isn't coming from me, and it's not coming from some group, then where does it come from? And Tillich says it comes from the very fabric of reality itself. He calls it being itself. The best way to think about this is not as a person, but as the fundamental power of existence, the ground of being that underlies everything. So this slide really lays out the whole journey for us. We started step 1, trying to root our courage in a group. That doesn't quite work. So we swing to the other extreme, step 2, rooting it in our own finite self. That doesn't work either. Tillich says the only real answer is step 3, taking a leap to what he calls absolute faith. And this is a deep trust in that ground of being we were just talking about. And that is what finally allows you to be an individual and a part of the world without losing either one. This brings us to maybe Tillich's most famous and, most challenging idea. He calls it the God above the God of theism. Now, what he means by the God of theism is the traditional idea of God as a being, a supreme person up in the sky that you can either believe in or not. That God, Tillich says, is an object of thought, and anything you can think about, you can also doubt. But the God above God isn't a being among other beings. It's being itself, the ground of all being. It's a reality so fundamental that you can't even really argue for or against it. You can only participate in it. And this leads to the final, really mind-bending paradox. True courage, this absolute faith, doesn't show up when life is easy and you've got it all figured out. No, it appears right in the heart of our deepest anxiety and doubt. It's the God who appears when God has disappeared. It's the courage you find when all your old certitudes, all your old beliefs have crumbled away, and yet you still choose to say yes to your own being. That is a courage that can look straight into the abyss and not flinch. So in the end, Tillich doesn't give us some easy 5-step guide to happiness. He gives us something way more valuable, a map. A map that shows us why just fitting in will fail us, and why just standing out will leave us empty. He challenges us to find a much deeper